My name is Charles Lee. I'm a candidate for Suisun City, California City Council. The election is November 8th, 2022. I've been in Suisun City, a resident of Suisun City, for a little over 7 years. And I found it to be a very, very accommodating city, a very good group of people that I've run into. And I'm real happy that I decided to spend the rest of my retirement in Suisun City. As such, people came to me. I was done really work. I had volunteered for the sheriff's office for 4 years, keep myself busy. I have a history of public service, over 39 years with the federal government, and I've been involved in community issues wherever I've lived, been involved with the Boy Scouts, been involved with a lot of things. But I was kind of content to retire and tend to my garden. And a couple people in the city came to me and said, we need some change in the direction of our city. We need people that are willing to go and work to change and address the issues about the city. And in the spirit of continuing my public service, I decided to accept the challenge. And I come from a background of law enforcement. I began working for law enforcement in 1973. I was a civil servant with the government. I started out as a GS2, worked for the FBI for 4 years, then became a special agent with NCIS, worked for them for almost 30 years, and finished my career 7 years with the Department of Transportation as the Assistant Inspector General for Investigations. Obviously, I have an affinity for law enforcement, and I really went into law enforcement to protect and serve the people of the United States. So love that work, and in my experience, I was able to learn a lot about leadership, about managing budgets, about contracts and things like that, and I think that would be something that would be beneficial in the position as a city council person for Suisun City.
So what do you think the city needs to improve?
I think there are a couple of top issues that I'm concerned about. There are a lot of things, and I want to state too, very candidly, that there have been some improvement in certain areas since I've moved into Suisun City. I'm not bad-mouthing anyone. I think that anybody that dedicates their time to a position such as city council to give to the community speaks volumes about them and their integrity, about their willingness to help their fellow citizens. And, you know, this isn't really a full-time paid position, so people are volunteering a lot of their time to make the city work and to serve all the citizens of the city. So I'm not saying that the city is just really totally messed up or anything like that. I know there are a lot of people who are saying a lot of negative things about the city and about the people that have served the city, and I have nothing negative to say about that. But what I have seen is that I think there are a couple of areas that we need to really find out what's happening and what's going on. And we need to do it in a way that the average citizens of Suisun can understand. You know, we have a city, Suisun is dubbed as a bedroom community. People are commuting, people are more so now, a lot of people are working from home, but regardless of whether you're working from home or commuting, you're tired at the end of the day. And you don't have the time to really sit down and pour through pages and pages of things that are put out by the city to try to explain what they're doing and how they're doing it. You know, you just don't have that kind of time. You got kids, you have other things that are going on in your life. So I think it's very important that we try to do things that are going to impact your quality of life, that are going to improve your quality of life. And one of the top priorities that I have is public safety. And that's a broad program, candidly. Public safety, it involves policing, it involves firefighters, it involves enforcement, code enforcement issues. So that's what I mean by public safety. And I really think that we can improve the community service of our police department by increasing by a very few numbers of police officers. And we need to get police into the community. We need to train our police officers because candidly, we have a problem maintaining police officers. We train them, we pay for that, and within a year or so, they're gone. And that reason is because they're the lowest paid police department in the whole Solano County. So I think pay parity is very important because you don't have people on the force that are there long enough to really get to know the community and to be involved with the community and learn to love the community and respect the cultural diversity of our community. And that is what's needed, to have people that know the community, engage with the citizens in a positive manner, not just when there's something bad that's going on, but to be out in the community patrolling circling around the community. And I think that's very important. I think that we need to make sure that our firefighters are paid the same or similar to other firefighters in the county. And we need to work on, we may need to increase the numbers of firefighters in our community with these wildlife fires. And we have a lot of land that is unoccupied. And with the drought that's occurring, it's a tinderbox. And we often have to call in for support from Fairfield, from other places, CAL FIRE, and we should be able to stand on our own if we're going to be a city, quite candidly. So those are the couple of issues in public safety. I'd also like to see police presence around our schools. We don't have school safety officers there anymore. And that is that potentially could be a problem, because with the way that things are happening in our country today, we find that school violence is something that is occurring throughout the country. And we may not be prepared to adequately respond or to be able to thwart those types of issues. I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but there's another aspect of the public safety issue, the police issue, that I'm very concerned about. And without increasing the numbers of police officers, we are not going to be able to do proactive work in our neighborhoods. We are not a major city. We don't have the crime that some of the larger cities have. We don't have a huge amount of violent crime, although we have had shootings and we've had other activity. We face a problem with theft, with vehicles converters being stolen from vehicles. Those types of things are happening increasingly in our community. And without proactive law enforcement, those things are not going to get addressed. So I think we have one detective now. I think they're talking about maybe being able to support one other. But with that, we can't go out and do proactive work. So I think that needs to be addressed, and we need to find some sources of income or revenue where we can adequately staff the fire department and the police department to do the job that we expect them to do.
What's your vision for the infrastructure of Suisun? How would you improve it?
I think that one of the things that we need to do, quite candidly, I hear, it's funny, when I go and talk to people and when I engage people, they come up with the same issues. And it's the roads are deteriorating in our community, in the city of Suisun. I don't know when the last time asphalt has been placed on the roads in the city, in the neighborhoods. They tell me that there's some that are starting now. They're starting to fix some of the roads, but we have potholes. We have weeds growing up through the asphalt. It's just, it's a poor situation. It's a sad situation, candidly, to see that. And it impacts your vehicles, that kind of thing. I think that we need to find out why this is not being addressed. I understand from talking to people, and quite candidly, I don't know if it's true or not, but people hear different things, that this was promised 5 years ago that we're going to be improving the roads. We're going to start fixing the roads. And that hasn't. I know people that have lived in this community 30 years, and they tell me that they haven't put new asphalt down in certain communities in 30 years. They put slurry down, they kind of fix the cracks a little bit, and they move on. And I think that's very important. The other issue, and I hear it every time, is the city or the public property that's overseen by the city has deteriorated to the point that it's an eyesore. And what I mean by that is, the center divides on streets like Walters and Sunset. And in many of our communities, I live in Lawler Ranch, when you enter the area, the public areas are not well maintained. I understand there's a drought, and I don't mind if it's brown, but we ought to eradicate the weeds and not let them grow up to be 3 or 4 feet high. And it is an eyesore, and we ought to be able to maintain that. The problem is they cut the weeds, they cut the trash, they leave the residual grass cuttings on the road. In the fall, the leaves fall from the trees that belong to the community and overseen, and they become a hazard, particularly if it rains. Cars spin out, people fall, and it's really a problem. And I think we need to pay more attention to that. We need to do something about that. We need to find the revenue to take care of that problem. And when I talk to people, it's one of the first things they mention, the condition of the common areas and the roads.
So how can you improve the communication of how tax dollars are being spent?
Well, it's funny, every candidate talks, I'm going to fix the budget, I'm going to attack the budget, I'm going to find out what's going on with the money. Well, that should be something that every candidate should do. It turns out a lot of times to be an empty promise. And they also talk about transparency, where I'm going to make sure that the government is transparent. it's hard to be transparent when you're looking at volumes and volumes of paper and PowerPoints explaining what the city is doing with the budget and where the money is supposed to be going. As I mentioned earlier, people really don't have time to sit down and go on their computer and look at pages and pages and pages of documents. You would think that we would be able to simplify these issues for people. We would be able to simplify the budget. Now, you ask me, how would I do that? At this moment, I don't really know. But I do know there are ways to simplify our presentation of issues regarding the budget, not just the budget, but on everything that the city does. And it almost seems like we are purposely, or the government structure is purposely trying to make the whole thing difficult people to understand, to kind of keep in the dark about it so they won't be raising hell. I just think that there's a much better to simplify this in layman's terms for people, because they don't have the time nor the will. When I look at the numbers of people that actually read the minutes from the council meetings, when I look at the number of people that actually zoom in to see the council meetings, those numbers, they're horrible. You know, you may get 300 or 400 people max to really look at what the minutes of the council meetings. And then if you go into a council meeting, unless they're presenting a proclamation or doing a swearing in of a new official, you'll see maybe 8 people at the city council meeting. Some nights there's 4. And believe it or not, the majority of the people of late have been the council candidates and the mayoral candidate, and some of the people that come to every city council meeting, and I think that's about 2. And there's the one lady who is always online asking questions and making comments. You find that there are a very limited number of people that really engage and listen to what's going on. When you have a meeting that lasts 4 hours, there's discourse back and forth with the council member and disagreement and, you know, that kind of thing. It just, people just say, you know, I hear that kind of stuff at home with the kids arguing. You know, I don't have time to listen to that. And things are never going to change. It's always going to be the same. I've encountered those comments on social media, quite candidly. Well, you know, all politicians are liars. Well, that's not true. And I hope to get there and try to prove that. I'm not a politician. I have accepted no endorsements from any parties. They've reached out. I have accepted no endorsements from any organizations to date, because my view is, you don't know me and you're asking me to fill out a questionnaire. And if I answer it a certain way, then you'll say, wow, okay, I'm going to endorse you. And oh, here's some money. I don't see, that's the problem with politics today, is that people are looking for endorsement. And the fact of the matter is, those organizations don't know you. And candidly, you get, if they give you something, something is expected back. And I mean, that's just common sense. And I think that we need to exercise more common sense and be more pragmatic in our leadership in this and in government. So, you know, that's kind of my thought on that. You know, I can't go into all the details, and I mean, I could sit here and talk all day about what I think and how things should work and that kind of thing, but people are going to listen to an hour-long liturgy by me concerning what I think should be done for the city. I'm just going to be honest, because I wouldn't listen to it. So,
if people want to get a hold of you and support you in your campaign, where's the best place for them to find more information about your campaign?
Well, I'm on Facebook as Charles H. Lee Jr. Those are probably the best ways.
To summarize, what are the main points people should know if they elect you? What should they know about what you stand for?
I think it's important that they know that I stand for public safety, but I stand for community policing and fair and just treatment of all citizens, regardless of social or economic status. Okay? We have to make sure that we don't have stereotyping in that world. I think we need to support our firefighters, make sure that they have the tools and the people necessary to protect us, because inevitably fires are going to happen. I think we need to look at our infrastructure, try to fix some things. I think we need to go out. If we have to hire a marketing consultant, I think we need to highlight the areas of Suisun, the waterfront, the people of Suisun who are out there starving for businesses to come into our area, so we don't have to drive all over the place to find really top quality restaurants that are going to do well. We need to support our local businesses, and we also need to find revenue. We need to find methods in which we can attract additional businesses to our community to produce revenue that we can utilize to make some of these changes in our community. We need to make sure that we work with the school board to make sure that our children are getting the best possible education that's out there, and to focus particularly on our special education children's needs. I find that, and my wife candidly works in special education, and she worked for probably 15 years in special education in the state of Maryland. And when she came out to California, she was amazed at the fact that some of the top-notch advanced methods of teaching special education children were not being taught in California. She was just amazed at how far behind we were on that. So I think we need to work with the school board to make sure that people are getting that access, because we're finding that more and more of our children are being diagnosed with things like autism. And I think it's very important, but at the same time, I think we need to make sure our kids are getting it, and I think they need to get that education in a safe environment. So we need to have attention paid to the safety of our schools. And I guess that's really pretty much, there are other smaller issues that I think about, but the reality of it is you're in office for 4 years, and in 4 years, I'll be almost 74 years old. I think it's insane for politicians to promise the world and you only have 4 years to do it, theoretically. And I'm for not being in the position, for 30 years. I think that that's insane. I think you need new people, new personalities, and new attitudes, people who are aware of the latest and the greatest of technology that's out there, that kind of thing. I think that you got to have that. And to be honest with you, as time goes on, we pay less attention to those things. So I think we need to make sure that we have people, we get some fresh faces in there as the years go on, and new ideas. So I'm not going to promise the world. I'm going to promise to be able to try to make certain things happen and work with my fellow council members to make sure that that kind of stuff happens. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
All right. Thanks, Charles. Thanks, Suisun's ready for some new leadership and new vision.
Thank you, Joe.